church picnic. We were at one of these combination church picnic events where you have the church service and the picnic kind of all in the same place. And we were, it was one of these gorgeous, beautiful days. It was crisp and cool in the morning, dew on the grass, kind of quiet where we were, and it was a peaceful setting. People started to show up with their potluck dishes, and it was one of these potluck picnics where we told everybody, go ahead and bring a side dish or dessert, and the church will provide the main dish, and we'll all just have a great meal after the service. So people started showing up, slowly filling up the tables and the refrigerators and everything with their side dishes while we had the church service first. As they were showing up, it was nearing time for the church service to start, so a group of us who were part of the planning group got together to just go over some final details and make sure everything was okay and pray before the service started. And as we got together and were talking about things related to the service and the picnic, we realized that there was a problem. Everybody was bringing their side dishes, but there was no main dish. And as we continued to talk about this, we realized that somebody forgot to order the main dish. And so there's no chance that it was coming. And we had a few hundred people that were ready to eat in about 2 hours, and there was no main dish. So at that point, I was very glad that I was on a team of people, because we went into team problem-solving mode. And we laid out our options like a good team would. And option one was, people are bringing lots of side dishes. Couldn't we just eat side dishes and desserts? I mean, there's surely enough. People bring enough for, 8, 10, 12 people each. So there's more than enough. And then somebody said, well, what if everybody brings dessert? That's not going to go over too well, and people aren't going to feel too good afterwards. So we decided option one wasn't too good. Option two was that we could just cancel the picnic and tell everybody, well, let's do church, but let's not have a picnic afterward, and we'll do that another time. And we said, no, that can't work, because, we're all here, we're all ready, this is what we're supposed to do. So that was not a chance. Option three was, let's scramble and try to find a main dish. So we went for option three. About 5 minutes before the service started, we all started calling, and we called restaurant after place, and we finally found somebody crazy enough to do it and deliver us a main dish of meat enough for several hundred people in 90 minutes. And we said, great, we're excited. The only part we weren't excited about is that we had to pay for it. But you pay for what you need. So we went along with the worship service. It started, and we were glad to see that about 60 minutes later, a van pulled up and delivered our main dish. And nobody at the picnic knew what happened. And we felt kind of like we fed the 5,000. But when Jesus fed the 5,000, it wasn't quite the same. Because everybody knew what happened. Everybody saw it, and everybody walked away knowing what had happened, but amazed that God did something. When Jesus also fed the 5,000, he also had a team. He also had a team of people. And they weren't organizing a church picnic, they weren't organizing a worship service or a main dish issue, but he had a team of people, and what they were doing is they were walking around with Jesus trying to figure out how to follow God. And as part of how to follow God, Jesus used this moment that happened, that wasn't planned, that wasn't prepared beforehand, that wasn't staged. He used this moment to teach them some valuable things about what it means to follow God and where we turn in day-to-day situations when we have issues to work through. See, I think what's funny about the feeding of the 5,000 is it's become such an epic story. I mean, everybody knows what the feeding of the 5,000 is about. You all know the punchline. There's no surprise at the end of the story because we all know it. It's become this huge story that's so well known. But for them, it wasn't well known, and it wasn't some planned event that people were coming to. It was just part of the course of this day that happened. They didn't know that people were going to be hungry. They didn't know what was going to happen. And it just so happened that Jesus realized, this is a moment where I can teach this group of people that I'm with about what it means to deal with the problem, and where do you turn when that happens? See, this story is really for the disciples. The crowd of people were there, and they got something out of it. But as we read this story, especially in the Gospel of John, we see that the story is for the disciples. They're the team who are trying to figure out how to follow God faithfully. Jesus is teaching that team specifically how to follow God faithfully. And this story, this event, it is teaching them specifically how to follow God. And so Jesus brings up the question and puts them on the spot about where do you turn when you come up against issues in your daily normal life. And when we come up against just random issues and daily issues that we face, where do you turn? And how do you get through them? So let's make the story a little fresh in our minds. So this is John chapter 6. It's in your bulletin or it's here on the screen. And again, no big surprise, no punchline. But I believe there's some details and some things in the story that teach us some great things about what it means for where we turn when we're just going through daily life and things happen. So, John chapter 6. Jesus crossed over to the far side of the Sea of Galilee, also known as the Sea of Tiberias. A huge crowd kept following him wherever he went because they saw his miraculous signs as he healed the sick. Then Jesus climbed a hill and sat down with his disciples around him. It was nearly time for the Jewish Passover celebration. Jesus soon saw a huge crowd of people coming to look for him. Turning to Philip, he asked, "Where can we buy bread to feed all these people?" He was testing Philip, for he already knew what he was going to do. Philip replied, "Even if we worked for months, we wouldn't have enough money to feed them." Then Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. "There's a young boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, but what good is that with this huge crowd?" "Tell everyone to sit down," Jesus said. So they all sat down on the grassy slopes. The men alone numbered about 5,000. Then Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks to God, and distributed them to the people. Afterward, he did the same with the fish, and they all ate as much as they wanted. After everyone was full, Jesus told his disciples, "Now gather the leftovers, so that nothing is wasted." So they picked up the pieces and filled 12 baskets with scraps left by the people who had eaten from the 5 barley loaves. See, Jesus sees this crowd coming up the hill, and he puts the disciples on the spot. And the question that they're faced with is, well, what should we do? How should we respond to this thing that's happening in this crowd that's here? So the team, the disciples, they go into problem-solving mode. And I love the solutions they come up with. I mean, Philip, he has the practical response, which is basically, we don't have it. We can't feed them. Totally impossible. We couldn't work long enough, we couldn't earn enough money, it's just not going to happen. That's all we get. Then we get Andrew's response, and he's the resourceful or community sourcing kind of response. He says, "Hey, I see this kid over here, and he's got a little bit of lunch. What if we use his, and maybe we source from some others, and we put it together? Maybe we can pool our resources, and we can find enough food." I mean, at least he's trying. He's trying to figure it out, but he quickly realizes, well, there's not a chance. This isn't enough. 5 loaves of bread and 2 small fish aren't going to feed all these people. So let's do a little math just for a second, because Andrew obviously did some quick math, but let's do some more specific math. Scholars have suggested that these 5 loaves of bread were probably like pita bread. That was kind of common. So they were probably like a cake of pita bread of some size. And they've suggested that the size of the loaf probably would feed about 3 people. It's a guess based on pans and pottery and other things. So let's say that those 5 loaves of bread fed 3 people each. That makes 15 people. Then there were 2 small fish. The story calls them small. Now, small to us might be like a little catch and release fish that we throw back, a couple-inch bass or something. Now remember, for them, they're a fishing culture, and they're next to the Sea of Galilee, which is a huge fishing lake. So to them, small might mean something a little bigger than our small. So if we're generous, we could throw out an estimate that maybe those 2 fish could feed the same amount of people. So if you put some bread together with some fish, you might have meal enough for, let's say, 15 people. So let's say we put our bread together, we put our fish together, and we have enough food to feed 15 people from this boy. Well, now the crowd is numbering how many people? 5,000 men. Now, we don't know for sure how many other people were there, but we know there's 5,000 men. So let's be conservative, let's say half of those men are married with their wives there. And let's say that of those 2,500 wives, let's say each of those families has 2 kids. For sure they have a lot more, but let's just say 2. So let's count this up. We have 5,000 men, 2,500 women, and 5,000 kids. That makes 12,500 people. So this really is the feeding of the 12,500. And if they only had food enough for 15 people, they had 0.12% of the amount of food that they needed. Anybody want to check the math? I think it's about right, but hey, they had 1.12% of the food they needed. When I was in high school, our church took Mexico mission trips every spring break. And it was a tradition for our church to do, and we went on a trip every year during high school. Our church had a great relationship with a certain village in Mexicali area where a lot of churches went through Azusa Pacific University and their trips down to Mexico. We had a great relationship with them because we'd gone there for years and years, and our church knew these people. We'd built buildings, we built a church, and we knew the pastor, and we knew the families, and we really knew this village pretty well. So when we went down this one particular year, we went down to build a house for the pastor and a retaining wall in the village also. A week's worth of work, along with also running our VBS program and playing with the kids and just having a good time together. Our routine on this trip was usually to go to the village in the morning, and then we would leave at lunchtime and we would go eat our lunch somewhere in a park not too far away, and then we'd come back and we'd finish our work in the village in the afternoon and go back to our camp sometime in the evening with everybody else. So we would work a couple portions and leave for lunch. Azusa Pacific, who sponsored this whole thing, they would, for all the teams, they would pack up your lunch in coolers. So based on how many people your group was or how many people you were sending to the village, they would pack it up. Our group was about 50 people. And so they packed up every day for us 2 coolers of food for us to take to our village. And so our routine was to take these, leave them in the van, and then go to the park and eat lunch. Well, late in the week, one week, we had decided to have a dedication service for the house and the retaining wall that we had built during the week. And it was a great way of sealing some good relationship with the village. And so we said, well, hey, you play the worship service, and we will have a celebration. They said, great. Our leader was named Ken DeYoung, and bless Ken DeYoung. Ken was one of these people who'd known these people ever since the first year that we'd gone down there. He had gone on every mission trip that the church had ever been on. He knew the people, he knew the routine, he knew everything about this place. And Ken was one of these people who was a loving, visionary, creative, super faithful kind of guy, and he would just do anything. So this morning that we go to the village, we get there, and it's the morning of this service, Ken says, you know what I think we need to do? I think after the service, we need to share our lunch. And we need to have a feast with these people. And I don't know why I caught wind of this or I heard this, but my practical side started kicking in, and I said, Ken, we have food for the 50 of us. This village is like 120 people, plus all of their extended family and all of their friends that they've invited to the service. We can't. And he said, well, let's go shopping. So we went down to the end of the village, and we went to this little tienda, which was the only store in town, and it looked kind of like a fireworks stand without the fireworks. And we walked up to it, and we cleaned them out. We cleaned them out by buying 1 loaf of bread and 1 jar of peanut butter, because our lunch was peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And so we brought our loaf of bread and our peanut butter back, and we threw it in the cooler, and I kind of looked at Ken like, what are we doing? He said, yeah, we're good. We have the worship service, and afterward we start fixing lunch. And our lunch worked like an assembly line. We had people that were making sandwiches and people that were handing out sandwiches. I was on the handing out sandwiches part of the line. So I would reach for a sandwich, and I would hand out the sandwich to somebody who came for it. And I would reach for a sandwich, and I'd hand it out. And I just kept reaching and handing, and reaching and handing. And we had food left after all several hundred people were fed. I don't know how that happened, because by all logical measure, we had maybe 40% of the food that we should have had. But for some reason, everybody got fed. How does God do these things? I mean, when we face problems that are bigger than us, when we face things in just normal life that we don't know where to go with or what to do, where do we turn? And Jesus is saying, turn to me first. I'm going to provide, I'm going to give, I'm going to show you the way, I'm going to do what needs to be done, so just turn to me first. Because we can solve problems in lots of ways. We have intelligence, and we have minds, and we have experience, and we have strength, and we have all kinds of things which we ought to use. And we better use it because God gave it to us. But if Jesus says anything in the story, he shows us that he wants us to turn to God first. And so if we did turn to God first, just when we run up against something, well, what does that look like? What do we do? I think one thing we do is we just simply ask God. If we run up against a problem or a challenge or an issue or a thing in our day, we just simply pause and say, God, I think I know what I'm supposed to do. I think I've got the plan. But would you please guide this and help me? Or if we're totally confused and we have no idea what to do, God, I have no clue what to do here. Would you please step into this and help me understand what I'm supposed to do? Give me guidance and wisdom. I think another thing we can do is we can become very familiar with God's style. Because God has a style. We've seen it as we've been reading through the Bible in this big picture journey that we've been on. We've started to pick up God's style and the way that God tends to operate. And the more we read about the way that God responds to things, the more we start to pick up and absorb God's style. And what if we were to absorb the style that God has of responding to problems and situations and challenges and stuff that we don't know what to do with? What if we just started to more naturally respond the way that God responds? The only way to do that is to know God's style. So if we become familiar with that by reading it and talking about it and rereading it and letting it sink in. When I was growing up, our family always prayed before meals. And anybody grew up praying before meals? It's a somewhat common thing. And we always sat down at meals together. Our family was a very meal-oriented family. So we prayed together once or twice a day at least at the table. And that habit sort of sunk in with me. And it became a routine. And at some point, I started praying before meals. You know, like when I was in college, I would pray before meals. Even if I was the only one there, I would pray before a meal. And we have that habit in our family. We pray before a meal. And it's not because you're supposed to pray before you eat. It's a way of remembering that God has given us everything we have, and so we thank him for it. And it's a habit, and it's a routine. And it's hard for me now to sit down at the table at a meal and not pray. Because I feel like I have to do it. I should do it. It's natural. It's part of who I am. It's part of the style that God has given. And it's become a routine. And habits that keep God first are good. I mean, our softball team prays before softball games. That's a great habit. Because it reminds us that God's given us freedom and the ability to play and be outside and create this world. It's a great habit. Some of you pray before certain things you do every day. You pray before you go to work. You pray before you meet a certain person. You pray when you're doing a certain task. The more habits we have of being in touch with asking God to do things, the more we're doing what Jesus is asking us to do, which is turn to God first. These disciples who were in this little group of people trying to figure out what to do and following God, they probably had a lot in their minds at this moment of this feeding miracle about keeping God first. And the reason they probably did is because of this little clue that John gives us. He gives us this seemingly insignificant clue about when this miracle happened. It happened at a certain time of year, and it happened when the Feast of Passover was approaching. Now, normally that's no big deal. It just helps us mark on the calendar when that was happening. But if the Feast of Passover is approaching, that's like Christmas to us. There's a whole new feeling, there's a whole set of things that we do to lead up to that, and we're thinking about all kinds of different things during that season that we don't think about during other seasons. So for them, the Passover season was all about celebrating the ways that God had provided for them. And so people would take time off work, people would prepare and make travel plans to come to Jerusalem, people would prepare for this Passover celebration that lasted a week. And when they prepared for that, they also thought about the things that they would experience when they're there, because the same things happen every year at this huge celebration. And they knew the stories they would hear, they knew the things they would talk about, they knew the things about God that people would tell them. And some of those stories, those popular stories that appeared every single year, those stories were about God feeding his people after rescuing them from Egypt so that they would not starve in the wilderness. And what did God feed his people? He fed them manna that fell from the sky, and he fed them quail that appeared every day. God fed them every single day so they would not starve. These people knew, those are the stories I'm going to hear, and I can't wait to celebrate these things because we do some cool activities and we learn what it means that this stuff happened. So this is the stuff that's in their minds because they're getting ready for the season, and Jesus comes along, and what does Jesus do? He lives it out. He provides this bread and this fish for these unlimited number of people, it seems like, out of the blue. He feeds them, and they're thinking about God has provided before, and then Jesus is providing here. He's doing the same thing, except for one thing is different. The stories that they remember hearing and they're tracking with from the Old Testament, those stories are all that God provided every day what they needed for that day. Jesus provides more than what these people need. Not just enough for what they need. See, look what Jesus asked the disciples to do. Jesus asked the disciples, after this feeding, he said, after everyone was full, Jesus told his disciples, now gather the leftovers so that nothing is wasted. So they picked up the pieces and filled 12 baskets with scraps left by the people who had eaten from the 5 barley loaves. Jesus asked the disciples, pick up all the leftovers. Because before there were no leftovers, God just gave enough. And now Jesus is saying, I'm giving you more than you need. Because God gives abundantly. And Jesus wants us to be absolutely certain that God's love is endless, and God's provision is abundant, and God gives abundantly. So what if we trusted that God gives abundantly? If we really believe that God gives more than we need, more than enough, what would we do? I wonder if we would dream really big. We're taking a huge step tomorrow in this development of this after-school Bible club that's happening here at the school. Tomorrow is Meet Your Teacher Day for the students, which is a big day all in itself for kids to meet their teachers. But it's also a big day for RiverCross because we are able to have some information available for parents, and several of us are going to be standing right out there talking to people as they come through the school, inviting them to this Bible club. Have we ever done an after-school Bible club before? No. This has been a dream for about a year, and it's finally beginning to happen, and we are going to be on the front lines, taking a risk, handing out stuff about this, and hoping that God blesses us with some children that we get to share Christ with this year after school. Dream big. And if we dream big, then does God provide abundantly? I hope so. As the Bible says, He provides more than we can ask or imagine. Well, we've asked and we've imagined, and maybe He can provide more than that. What if we dream big? One of the conversations we're going to have in a couple weeks after our second anniversary celebration is we're going to get together and talk for an hour and a half or so about the things that God has ahead for us as a church. These are going to be practical conversations and brainstorming, and these are going to be dreaming conversations also about what big things could God have in store. We've named some of them, we've followed through on some of them, but we may not have any idea about the things that God has ahead. And what if we dream big about the provisions, the abundant provisions that God can have? I think we can, because God wants us to turn to Him first. So if we're able to do that in celebrating our 2nd anniversary, I think we're able to at least take a step in doing the things that God calls us to do. Let's pray.